All right, this is the beginning video for the discussion of hypothesis testing. What we are going to do, we are going to discuss the concept of hypothesis testing, and we are going to get into a technical side of it. What we have done, remember, we are still discussing inference. We collected the data, we explored the data, let's say, and we looked at point estimation. Now we are going to look at interval estimation, right? We looked at, I'm sorry, interval estimation. Next, we are going to talk about hypothesis testing. A few examples. Um, because this one is a little bit elaborate, I'm going to skip this one, but there are claims like this: how salsa dancing, and it's a claim. Salsa dancing could cut breast cancer risk in over people over 60. So it's a claim. Here's another claim: restaurants find that smartphones have doubled table time since 2004. Right? Here's another one. If you give people one extra day off, it is going to improve their productivity. So these are all claims that the way we are going to test them oftentimes is with hypothesis testing. All right. Now, let's see how that is going to work. We are going to formulate a hypothesis. When I say formulate a hypothesis, we are going to divide the whole world into two pieces. One piece, we are going to call that null hypothesis or H0. Another piece, we are going to call this HA, alternative hypothesis, or H1. All right. What is this is our approach to hypothesis testing. This is our approach, all right? Then we are going to define a rejection region. If in this rejection region, if result of the data or if a statistic from the data um, falls in this region, we are going to reject H0. Otherwise, we are going to fail to reject H0, all right? When do we reject H0? Well, we are going to reject H0 if data that we collect makes H0 look so ridiculous. All right. If H0 says it's today is sunny and you look outside and it's raining, and then you call your friend that lives in Virginia and ask him about the weather, and he says, "Oh, it's cloudy and it's raining." If you call your friend in Maryland, same thing. See, your data that you collect makes H0 look ridiculous. So if that happens, then we are going to reject H0. It's a very simple concept, all right? So let's quantify that. Now, very first step is formulating hypothesis. Again, null hypothesis is our default. All right? If you don't have any data, what do you prefer to do? And or in other words, satisfactory option when there is no data. And what is H1? Well, let me put it loosely. If you want to prove something, put it in H1. All right. So because why? What we are going to do, we are going to collect data, and if data is completely in clash with H0, then we are going to reject H0 and we are going to accept H1. All right. So if you really want to statistically prove something, we are going to put it in H1. Now, in a courtroom, this is a very classic example. In a courtroom, what is default? So you go to a court, and what is your default? Well, default is that in a court, you are not guilty. All right, you are innocent until proven guilty. All right, so you are not guilty. H0 is you are not guilty, and H1 is you are guilty. So if all the data, footage, police report, evidence says is against the H0, which is you are not guilty, if there is a conflict there, then we are going to reject H0, meaning you are not guilty is ridiculous, then you are guilty. All right. In case of, I'm going to give you one more example and then move on with the rest of the material. Developing a vaccine. Well, if you are developing a vaccine for a disease that is going to impact possibly millions and millions of people, then you really want to make sure that this vaccine is effective. How you are going to do that? Well, H0 is going to be vaccine is not working. all right? So I don't have data. Why would I give this vaccine to people? Why would I approve it, right? So default is that this vaccine is not working. And this is the one that protects the society in the absence of data. Now you collect data, you run tests, and if data that you collect, if your experiment proves that, as a matter of fact, vaccine is working, then we are going to reject H0 and accept H1, which is vaccine is effective. All right. So I'm going to leave all of these to you just to test it. And all of these are examples. Um, I'm going to move forward with these. Okay, so let me go back up here. So typical type of hypothesis in this course, we are going to look at two different types of hypotheses. One of them is a parameter takes a specific value. Remember, parameter is unknown yet fixed value of a population's parameter. For example, height of a tree, height of average height of a tree in a specific forest. In that forest, you haven't measured every single tree, so you don't know the average. So mu that you have for that population is unknown. So we want to test, can I say mu is equal to 100? All right, versus mu is not equal to 100. This is one kind of hypothesis testing we are going to do. Another one is a relationship between two factors. For example, can I say that cancer and pesticides, there's a relationship? Can I say that there is a connection between salsa dancing and breast cancer rate in women under the age of over the age of 60, and so on and so forth? All right. All right, so let's look at the analogy that we have between a court and hypothesis testing. I'm going to just go over a couple of them, and then the rest, hopefully, you can follow up yourself. The truth is that truth is that either H0 is sorry, one more time. The truth is that either the person is either innocent or guilty. That is a fact, right? But nobody knows that the person is innocent or guilty. That is truth, all right? In court, we are going to assume that this person is not guilty. See, I'm not starting with this person is innocent. I'm saying this person is not guilty, right? H0 in court is person is not guilty, H1 is guilty. Let's look at the other side in hypothesis testing. Either H0 or H1 is true. And default is that H0 is true, all right? Court outcome, it's going to be either you are not guilty or guilty. And then in hypothesis testing, we are going to say either fail to reject H0 or reject H0. Okay, remember, I did not say accept H0. Either I'm failing to reject H0 or reject H0. Why is that? Because there's no guarantee that if I collect more and more data, my result is not going to change. All right, and it's the same thing in court. If court says you are not guilty, well, based on existing data, you are not guilty. There might be extra data 2 years later surfacing that may change the results. And that's the same thing with hypothesis testing. You may collect more data and realize that, you know what, my initial results that conclusion that I made that H0 is, that the H0 is, that I cannot reject H0, now I have to reject it. All right. The rest, I'm going to leave it to you to follow, but keep this in mind. There are two types of error in a court. Either you are convicting an innocent or you are acquitting a guilty person, right? There are two types of error in hypothesis testing. Either you are not rejecting true H0, we are going to call that type 1, or you are not rejecting false H0, right? We are going to call that type 2 error. Sorry. So we have two types of error, H0 and H1. And between these two, H1 is more serious, or rejecting true H0. And I'm going to explain it with that court example. Imagine you are in a court and you are not guilty, and all of a sudden, they make a mistake and send you to prison for years and years. This is a mistake, right? And this is a very, very serious mistake. We will try to minimize possibility of that, right? So we are going to set that error or probability of that error to a very small number. Type 1 error is going to be very small, or probability of type 1 error is going to be very small number. In other words, probability of rejecting true H0 is going to be a very small number. So this one in this table, either H0 is true or false. Either I reject H0 or I fail to reject H0. Well, let's see. If H0 is true and I fail to reject it, this is a good decision. If H0 is true and I reject H0, let's go back. If H0 is true and I reject it, that is type 1 error, all right? If H0 is false and I fail to reject it, that's also error. That is type 2 error right there, all right? And then this is also a good decision, all right? Type 1 error, usually we show that with alpha. Type 2 error, we show that with beta. All right, so we looked at formulating the hypothesis and different kinds of error. Let's look at rejection region, all right? And then we are going to collect data. In order to discuss rejecting a region, let's look at one example, all right? You know what, actually, I'm going to record one more video for this one. Let's look at this topic in the next video.